At a family reunion, my 7-year-old adopted daughter was told not to join the family picture because she's not real family. She cried silently all night, even with her father beside her. When I found out, I didn't shout. I did this. 3 hours later, the whole family lost it. My name's Tessa Morgan. I'm 34 years old. I'm standing in a busy lakefront hotel lobby on the second night of a 4-day family reunion I paid for. The heavy oak doors to the banquet hall are locked, and Mr. Edwards, the venue manager, is telling my bewildered relatives that the dinner has been canceled. A few feet away, a printed sign on a wooden easel reads, "Tonight's dinner donated with love," followed by my daughter's name. My mother, Linda Morgan, demands an explanation, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. My sister, Bate Morgan, points a perfectly manicured finger at me and calls it sabotage. I look at the crowd of confused faces, feeling as steady as a level, and say, "If my daughter isn't family in your photos, you aren't eating on my dime." Before I tell you how a reunion I funded ended with locked doors and a sign with my daughter's name, tell me where you're listening from. Drop your city and country in the comments, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more first-person family revenge stories. I've always been a creature of habit. A project coordinator by trade, my life runs on lists, timers, and meticulously balanced budgets. My world is a fortress built of predictability, and I'm the one who lays every brick. My mornings start before the sun has a chance to burn off the morning haze, the house still wrapped in a cool, blue silence. The first sound is the quiet hiss of the coffee maker, a promise of the caffeine that will sharpen the edges of my focus. While it brews, I move through a practiced ballet. Lunchboxes are packed. Lily's dark hair is woven into 2 neat braids that bounce when she laughs, and the daily checklist on the fridge is reviewed. It's a simple system, a tangible map of our day that keeps us all on track. My husband, Evan Morgan, is the kindest man I've ever known, but his spine is made of something softer than mine. He's the type to apologize to strangers when they bump into him on the street, his default setting a gentle deference that I find both endearing and, at times, maddening. He's the heart of our home, I'm the bones. Our daughter, Lily Morgan, is the soul. At 7 years old, she's a brilliant mix of sharp intelligence and a gentle spirit. Her giggle is a sound that can crack me wide open, spilling all the carefully contained parts of myself onto the floor. She is the reason for every list, every plan, every carefully laid brick. Within my own family, the one I was born into, I'm the reliable one. I'm the human calendar who remembers birthdays, the logistics expert who books contractors, and the accountant who keeps all the receipts. My phone buzzes all day long with a constant stream of small requests that are always framed as emergencies. Can you spot us until Friday? Just a one-time favor, I promise. Could you do a quick transfer? It's a language I've become fluent in. I'm used to being a faucet. Turn me on, water flows, turn me off, things wither and burn. That's the unspoken job description of the responsible daughter. I tell myself it's an act of love. I convince myself it's my duty. But if I'm being honest, deep in the quiet of the morning before anyone else is awake, I know it's just a habit. A habit that serves everyone else and a habit they have no intention of letting me break. The numbers are etched into my monthly routine, as familiar as my own password. Every first of the month, a transfer of $1,150 leaves my account and lands in my parents' account. It's for their mortgage, a payment they insist they just can't keep up with since Dad's hours were cut. Another $220 follows it, an automatic payment for their homeowners association fee, because as Mom always says, it's just so much easier if you do it, honey. My sister's family gets their share too. $390 goes out on the 5th of every month to cover her kids' activities. It pays for soccer for my nephew, Owen Morgan, and gymnastics for my niece, Ruby Morgan, ensuring they have the picture-perfect childhood my sister curates for social media. I'm the silent, invisible sponsor behind the trophies and ribbons. Last year, when a hailstorm ripped shingles from my parents' roof like they were made of paper, a single payment of $7,300 left my savings account without a moment's hesitation. I'm their emergency fund, their bridge loan, and their recurring deposit, all without the burden of interest and, more often than not, without the courtesy of a thank you. Each transfer is logged in my calendar with a friendly, sterile label. Mom-Dad mortgage, HOA, kids sports. The money moves like clockwork at 7 in the morning, usually before I've even finished my first cup of coffee. I don't exactly miss the money, not in a way that changes my own life, but I always feel its absence. It's a quiet subtraction, a constant outflow that keeps everyone else's boat from sinking while mine just has to be sturdy enough to handle the drain. No one ever asks if it's still okay, if the arrangement still works for me. The only time I hear about it is if I'm 15 minutes late when my phone buzzes with a text asking if everything is all right with the transfer. Linda Morgan and George Morgan are my parents. When I speak to them, I call them Mom and Dad, the names rolling off my tongue out of lifelong habit. Mom is a woman who praises self-sacrifice, especially when it's mine. She calls it being a good daughter, a phrase that feels less like a compliment and more like a job title with a long list of unwritten duties. Her approval is a currency I've been trying to earn my whole life. Dad, on the other hand, is a master of avoidance. He navigates conflict with a profound and frustrating silence. He lets Mom make the decisions, cast the deciding votes, and then he quietly steps in to support whatever she's decreed. It's a system of passive agreement that leaves no room for dissent. My sister, Bate, is the golden one. She has the glossy family pictures, the easy, camera-ready smile, and a mountain of strong opinions. She is never paid full price for anything if I exist as an alternative. When I, on the rare occasion, ask for help, a ride from the airport, someone to watch Lily for an hour, the response is always the same. "Oh, you're so capable, Tessa, you've got this." It's meant to sound like a compliment, but it feels like a dismissal. When Bate asks for help, my parents' immediate response is, "Of course," and if "of course" happens to cost money, it's implicitly understood that I'm the one who will foot the bill. I learned my role early on. I am the filler of gaps, the smoother of rough patches, the quiet hinge on the family door that never squeaks. My usefulness is what makes me visible to them. My own needs, however, make me invisible. I am praised for my patience, not for my boundaries, for my generosity, not for asking for what I need. It's a delicate, exhausting dance, and I've been dancing it for as long as I can remember. Lily's room is painted a soft, hopeful shade of sunrise yellow. When the sun hits it just right in the morning, the whole room seems to glow from within. At night, a universe of tiny glow-in-the-dark stars speckles her ceiling, a private galaxy we switch on before she drifts off to sleep. She calls me Mommy and Evan Daddy, and even after all this time, the simple sound of those words can make my throat ache with a fierce, protective joy. We adopted her after years of soul-crushing paperwork, interviews that felt like interrogations, and a waiting period that stretched our hope thin. The day she arrived, our quiet house grew softer, warmer, as if it had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. We've always been honest with Lily about her story. We tell her every single night that she belongs to us, that we chose her on purpose, that she was the missing piece we had been searching for. Her bedroom has a special shelf installed at her eye level filled with family photos. She is centered in every single frame, a constant visual reminder of her place at the very core of our world. She loves drawing enormous, smiling whales and leaving little notes for us on the kitchen counter, written in her careful, first-grade handwriting. "I like you, you are nice." When my extended family talks about her, I find myself listening for the tone, for the subtle inflection just beneath the surface of their words. Sometimes there's an edge, a slight hesitation, or a forced warmth that I pretend not to hear for the sake of peace. When a great-aunt refers to her as not our real granddaughter, I correct it immediately, my voice low and steady. "She is very real," I say, every single time without raising my voice. Protecting her is an instinct that runs deeper than my own blood. I would break the world in half to keep her safe and then hand her the better half, no questions asked. The idea for the family reunion was mine. A grand gesture to bring everyone together to create a happy, lasting memory. I booked a 4-day event at a beautiful lakeside lodge, complete with a ballroom for a formal dinner, a pontoon boat rental for a day on the water, and a small local band for the second night. The total cost came to $10,940, a sum I paid up front with my credit card because the familiar, empty promise of "we'll settle up later" never, ever happens. I handled all the logistics, reserving 3 adjoining rooms for Mom, Dad, and Bates' family, plus a spacious suite for Evan, Lily, and me. I'm a project coordinator. Planning is what I do. I drafted a detailed schedule with color-coded blocks for each activity: the arrival dinner, the boat day, a family game night, the official photo session, and the farewell lunch. I emailed the agenda to everyone a month in advance, asking for food preferences, noting the kid-friendly activities, and providing clear instructions for their RSVP. Everything was planned down to the last detail. But a last-minute work trip, a mandatory client meeting I couldn't get out of, meant I would miss the first evening. I wasn't worried. I planned to drive up first thing the next morning. Before I left for my trip, I handed Evan a thick folder containing everything he would need: reservation numbers, contact information for the hotel staff, and a gentle reminder to keep Lily close. I packed her favorite purple sweater, the one with the sequined cat on the front, and 2 backup stuffed animals, a worn-out bear and a floppy-eared dog, just in case she needed extra comfort. I expected the weekend to be filled with laughter, inside jokes, and maybe a little bit of the usual low-grade family drama. I didn't expect a test. That was my mistake. I was so focused on the logistics of the event that I forgot to account for the emotional landscape. The work meeting ran late. A key client, Mr. Henderson, kept finding new things to discuss, pushing my departure time back an hour, then another. I finally sent a text to the family group chat. "So sorry, everyone. Client meeting is running way over. I won't make it tonight, but I'll be there bright and early tomorrow morning." I followed it with a string of cheerful emojis to mask my disappointment. I sent a separate text to Evan, asking him to send me a picture of Lily at dinner so I could feel like I was there with them, cheering her on from afar. He promised he would, and he also promised to keep an eye out for any of the usual family weirdness. I trusted him because I wanted to trust him, because the alternative was to spend my night sick with anxiety. He and Lily checked into the lodge without any issues, dropped their bags in our suite, and made their way to the ballroom where the welcome dinner was just starting. Soon enough, the group chat began to fill up with pictures of clinking wine glasses and blurry, smiling faces. "Wish you were here," my sister texted, followed by a photo of her kids making silly faces at the camera. I replied with hearts and smiley faces, playing my part from a distance. Exhausted from the long day, I fell asleep early, my phone lying face down on the hotel nightstand, secure in the belief that the night had gone smoothly. The shrill sound of my alarm woke me at 5, but it was the screen of my phone that jolted me fully awake. 3 missed calls from Evan, all from around 2 in the morning. And beneath them, a short, gut-wrenching text that had been sent hours ago: "We need to talk." My heart hammered against my ribs. I stared at the screen, the words glowing in the dark room, until the first hint of dawn began to creep through the curtains. My body was already bracing for an impact I couldn't yet name, a cold dread coiling in the pit of my stomach. Later that morning, as I drove the winding road toward the lake, Evan told me what had happened. His voice on the car's speaker was flat, hollowed out. He said that after dinner, my dad had gathered everyone on the grand ballroom steps for a group photo. It was supposed to be a nice start to the weekend, a snapshot of everyone together. Lily, excited and happy, had run forward to join them. She found a spot right next to my mom, her small hand gripping the ornate iron railing, a huge, joyful grin plastered on her face. And then Mom had looked down at her. She gently touched Lily's shoulder and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Family only, sweetheart." She gestured for Lily to step out of the frame. Evan's voice cracked as he described the scene. He said he just froze. The photographer was waiting, camera poised. Everyone was watching. And in that moment of stunned silence, paralyzed by a lifetime of not making waves, he did nothing. He just stood there as Lily's bright smile collapsed. She backed away from the group, making herself as small as a comma, and went to sit on a velvet chair against the wall, her hands folded in her lap. The photographer called out for everyone to smile, and the shutter clicked, capturing the moment perfectly. With her out of it, Evan said Lily didn't make a sound until they were back in the hotel room, alone. Then, she cried. Not loudly, not with big, heaving sobs, but silently, her small body shaking the bed as the tears streamed down her face. As I listened, something inside me went cold and sharp. The scattered pieces of years of slights, of awkward comments, of forced smiles all clicked into place. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a thoughtless oversight. It was a statement. I pulled into the lodge's parking lot, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I walked through the lobby, my bag slung over my shoulder, and spotted Mom and my sister in the hotel's dining room. They were sitting at a table by the window, surrounded by half-eaten plates of pastries and lukewarm cups of coffee. I walked straight to their table and stood over them, not bothering to sit down. I kept my voice low, even a calm I didn't feel. Why was Lily told to step out of the photo last night? Mom blinked, a flicker of surprise in her eyes before it was replaced by a familiar, dismissive placidity. It was a family-only tradition, honey, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. Don't make this a thing. Bate waved her hand, shooing the question away like it was a fly. You know how group photos go, Tessa. It was just the original Morgans. We'll get one with all the kids later. It's not a big deal. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. She is family, I said, the words feeling small and inadequate, but also like the truest thing I had ever said. My mother just blinked again, looking at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking in a foreign language. A profound, icy clarity washed over me. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is messy, loud. What I felt was precision. I carefully placed my fork on my napkin, a small, final gesture. I didn't say another word. I simply stood up and walked away. I felt their eyes on my back as I left the dining room, but I didn't turn around. I walked down the long, carpeted hallway toward the hotel's business center, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. Rage is a fire that burns itself out. Precision is a scalpel, it's lethal. Inside the sterile, quiet business center, I sat down at an empty computer desk. The air smelled of toner and old paper. I took out my phone and set a 3-hour timer. It was a habit from work: set a deadline, break down the tasks, and execute. In that small, windowless room, I listed everything I could control within that timeframe. My first call was to the ballroom manager. I kept my voice polite, professional. I need to cancel tonight's reservation, I said, the dinner for the Morgan reunion. My second call was to the boat rental company. I'm calling to cancel the pontoon boat booking for tomorrow morning. My third call was to the bandleader, a friendly guy named Frank I'd spoken to last month. Frank, it's Tessa Morgan. We need to cancel your performance for tonight. I'll pay the full cancellation fee, of course, but please don't show up. With the big-ticket items handled, I moved to the most important part of the plan. I called the hotel's front desk and asked for the manager. I requested that a simple sign be placed on an easel at the ballroom entrance. The text was to be plain, black ink on white paper. Tonight's dinner donated with love, Lily Morgan. Then I Googled women's shelters in the area and found one a few towns over. I phoned their main line and explained the situation. 19 trays of catered food, chicken, pasta, salads, vegetables, desserts. The works would be ready for pickup at 6 o'clock. I finished my calls and opened my banking app. With 3 deliberate taps, I turned off the automatic transfers, the mortgage payment to my parents, the homeowners association fee, the monthly allowance for my sister's kids' activities. It was all done in under an hour. I took a slow, deep breath, the first one that didn't feel tight in my chest. I would not raise my voice. I would not engage in a screaming match in the hotel lobby. I would not explain myself. I would simply act. The call blitz was a series of precise, surgical cuts. I spoke to the ballroom coordinator, a flustered woman named Brenda, and requested that she confirm the cancellation in writing via email. She warned me about the partial fee for a same-day cancellation, the worry audible in her voice. That's fine, I said calmly. Charge it to the card on file. I made one additional request. Please ensure the ballroom doors remain locked to my group this evening. The bandleader sounded genuinely disappointed. He'd been looking forward to the gig. I sent him his full cancellation fee electronically, along with a generous tip, and thanked him for his flexibility and understanding. The owner of the boat rental company sighed dramatically into the phone, complaining about the difficulty of filling a slot on a peak summer weekend. I listened patiently, accepted the penalty fee without argument, and released the reservation. Each call ended with the same instruction: please confirm this cancellation by email to this address. I wanted a clean, time-stamped paper trail of every action I took. I called the front desk again and asked them to remove the Morgan family reunion signage from the lobby. My voice remained steady throughout every conversation. I wasn't selling a sob story or looking for pity. I was buying clarity. The financial cost of it all was real, a sharp sting to my account, but so was the message I was sending. If you cut my daughter out of the frame, I cut the funding off at the source. My next call was to the women's shelter. A kind, efficient woman named Carla, the shelter coordinator, answered the phone. I explained that I had a large catering order from a canceled event and asked if they could use it. 19 trays of hot food, enough to feed dozens of women and their children. There was a pause on the line before Carla asked, "Are you sure?" Her voice was gentle, as if she was used to dealing with people in crisis. "Yes," I said, my own voice firm. "I'm absolutely sure. Please send your driver to the hotel's loading dock at 6 this evening." I ran through the menu details with her: roasted chicken, penne pasta with marinara, steamed rice, mixed vegetables, and a variety of desserts. She confirmed that it would be more than enough for their residents. Before we hung up, I reiterated my request for the sign at the ballroom entrance: "Tonight's dinner donated with love, Lily Morgan." I emailed the exact text to the hotel manager to ensure there were no mistakes, specifying plain white paper and simple black ink. I wanted the message to be stark and clear. Carla promised to text me a photo when the food trays arrived safely at the shelter. She ended the call with a quick, heartfelt blessing that caught me by surprise. As a final touch, I went to the shelter's website and made an online donation, rerouting the band's cancellation fee and a little extra to their general fund. In that moment, I made a conscious choice to transform a moment of casual cruelty into a hot meal, to attach my daughter's name not to the hurt, but to the act of giving that followed. With the external arrangements handled, I turned my attention inward to the digital threads that connected my finances to my family. I logged into my banking app, the familiar interface a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil of the morning. With a few decisive taps, I located the scheduled transfers. First, I paused the $1,150 mortgage payment to my parents. The app asked for confirmation, a digital double-check. I hit confirm without hesitation. Next, I paused the $220 homeowners association fee. Confirm, then the $390 for my sister's kids' activities. Confirm it was done. For added security, I changed my password to a complex string of random characters, enabled two-factor authentication, and went into the settings to remove all trusted devices, including my mother's tablet and my sister's laptop. As I scrolled through my recent account activity just to be sure I hadn't missed anything, a strange transaction caught my eye. It was listed under a family card, a virtual card profile I had no memory of creating. My stomach lurched. I began taking screenshots of everything: the dates, the amounts, the vendors, the unusual card name. I immediately found the option to cancel the virtual card and requested that new physical credentials be sent to my home address by mail. For the first time in years, as I looked at my projected monthly budget, it felt like it was entirely mine. A tremor ran through my hands, but it wasn't from fear or anger. It was the quiet, shuddering relief of a weight being lifted. It didn't take long for the blowback to start. My phone, which had been blessedly silent, suddenly buzzed to life. The first message was from a cousin. "Hey, what's going on? Dad just said dinner is canceled." Before I could even think of a reply, my mother's message appeared in the group chat. "There seems to be some confusion with the hotel. We're working to fix it. Everyone just relax." Her attempt to control the narrative was immediate and predictable. Then came a direct message from my sister, Bate, her words practically vibrating with fury. "What did you do? Mom is freaking out. You're humiliating us in front of the entire family." I took a deep breath and typed a single, calm reply. "Dinner is going to people who won't exclude my child." I hit send and watched the 3 small dots appear and disappear as she typed and deleted her response. The main group thread erupted. A flood of question marks, exclamation points, and urgent messages demanding to know what was happening. I silenced the thread, the digital equivalent of closing a door on a room full of shouting, and set my phone face down on the desk. I gave myself 10 minutes to just breathe. In the quiet, a private text from Evan came through. "I'm so sorry I froze. I feel awful. Lily just asked me if she was in trouble." The words twisted in my gut. I replied immediately. "She is not in trouble. You and I are her protectors. Stand with her today. That's your fix." I knew I had to get ahead of the inevitable confrontation in the lobby. I called the front desk manager again, warned him to expect some pushback from my family, and instructed him to direct all questions to me and me alone. The hotel staff didn't deserve to be caught in our crossfire. Back in our suite, the air was thick with unspoken words. Evan was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He looked utterly gutted. "I should have said something," he repeated for the 3rd time since I'd walked in. I didn't know what to do." I sat down next to him, leaving a small space between us. "You froze," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "It happens, but you won't freeze next time. We learn from these things and then we change." He looked up at me, his eyes full of shame. "Are we going too far with all this? Canceling everything?" I met his gaze, my own resolve solidifying. "No," I said, "we're going exactly as far as they did. We're just stopping there." I told him to take Lily down to the little playground behind the lodge to get her away from the tense atmosphere of the hotel. "Stay off the group thread," I advised him. "Just be with her." He nodded, relieved to have a clear task. He stood up and took Lily's hand. "I've got you," he said to her, his voice full of a conviction that hadn't been there before. I watched them walk out the door, and I saw Lily's small shoulders relax as she believed him. In that moment, my anger at him for freezing began to loosen its grip. My love for him, however, tightened, seeing him try so hard to make it right. I sent a quick text to Grace Parker, my neighbor, giving her a brief update. Her reply came back instantly. "Proud of you. Need backup? Just call." I took a deep breath and steeled myself. My gut was telling me this wasn't over, that the photo was just the symptom of a much deeper problem. Something else was waiting to be uncovered. That evening, after the chaos in the lobby had died down, I sat in the quiet of our hotel room and opened my laptop. I had a nagging feeling, a loose thread I needed to pull. I started by opening my email and searching for all the receipts related to the reunion. I began building a simple list in a spreadsheet: date, vendor, amount, and purpose. It was a tedious task, but my project manager brain found comfort in the order of it, in the black and white clarity of the numbers. It didn't take long for a pattern to emerge, a series of charges that made my stomach tight. There were upgrades and extras tied to my event bookings that I hadn't authorized. Small things at first, then larger ones. The sum of these unauthorized extras quickly climbed, hitting a staggering $3,870 over the last few months. The charges were blatant: a VIP bar add-on for the welcome dinner, an extra floral package for the ballroom, and a deposit for a children's entertainer that I had specifically declined because it was too expensive. Each of these items had been charged to a saved profile under my name and email, but the delivery or confirmation address was different. I recognized it immediately. It was my sister's address. The number itself was shocking, but it was the nerve that truly took my breath away. The absolute, unshakable confidence she must have had to do this, so certain that I would either not notice or not care. I started taking screenshots of every single unauthorized receipt, saving them in a new folder on my desktop. I named it Reunion Actual. Digging deeper into the vendor websites, I found the source of the problem. The family card I had seen on my bank statement wasn't a physical card. It was a virtual card number my sister, Bate, had created using my saved login information on the event planning site. She had cleverly labeled it Family, making it seem like an official, shared account, and then put it on file for any and all upgrades without ever mentioning it to me. The audacity of it was breathtaking. I could see the charges, timed perfectly with messages she had sent to the group chat weeks earlier. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a professional clown for the kids? Followed by a charge for a children's entertainer deposit. The standard bar package looks a little basic, don't you think? Followed by the VIP bar add-on. I had been her personal slush fund, the safety net that was assumed to be forever there to catch any and all of her whims. I wasn't just the reliable one, I was the exploitable one. The point wasn't just to get what she wanted, it was to do it without asking, to operate as if my money was her money. I went through the process of canceling the virtual card immediately and contacted the vendor's customer service to flag the account for fraudulent activity. I wasn't interested in legal battles. I just wanted to put up a stop sign, a digital deadbolt. I printed out a simple one-page summary of the charges with dates and amounts clearly listed and placed it in the folder with the other screenshots. The shock was already fading, replaced by a cold, hard sense of purpose. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about arithmetic and boundaries. The repayment number was clear, $3,870. Due in 14 days. No exceptions, no excuses. Just as I was closing my laptop, my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin, Kim Lawson. She was one of the few relatives I felt a genuine connection with, someone who existed outside the immediate orbit of my parents' and sisters' drama. Her message was short, "You need to see this." Below it were a series of screenshots. My hands trembled slightly as I opened them. They were from a private group chat for members of my mother's church. My breath caught in my throat as I read my own mother's words about my daughter. Someone had asked how we were doing with the new addition, and Mom had replied, "It's an adjustment. She's not permanent, of course. We'll see how it goes." Not permanent. The words swam on the screen, blurring and sharpening like a camera lens struggling to focus. She had referred to my child, my beautiful, brilliant Lily, as if she were a foster pet on a trial run. Another screenshot showed a conversation with my sister. Bate had written, "It complicates things," in response to a question about Lily being part of their family plans. It complicates things. My daughter wasn't a person to her. She was a logistical problem. I stared at the word temporary until it lost all meaning, just a jumble of letters, and then it snapped back into focus with the force of a slap. Kim's follow-up text appeared. "I'm so sorry, Tessa. I didn't know if you knew what they were saying, I just couldn't keep quiet about it anymore." I typed back a simple, heartfelt thank you, my fingers feeling numb. I saved the screenshots to the folder on my desktop. There would be no more negotiating, there would be no more benefit of the doubt. You don't reason with people who talk about your child like that. My love for Lily, which had always been a warm, glowing thing, now prickled into something sharp and protective. It was armor. The screenshots from Kim dug a trench beneath whatever polite surface I'd been standing on. The church chat didn't stop with the "not permanent" line. There were threads where Mom praised people who stick to their roots and implied that ours was a different kind of family experiment. Someone joked about keeping things simple for the next generation, and under it Bate wrote, "We'll see how this plays out." It read like commentary, a running soap opera where my daughter was the guest star whose contract might not be renewed. The worst part wasn't just the words, it was the tone, dismissive, amused, like they were sharing recipes at a luncheon. I could almost hear the teacups clinking. I forwarded a few of the most hurtful lines to Evan and then to Kim, thanking her quietly for the heads up. Kim replied with 3 heart emojis and later a voice message I listened to twice. Her voice shook as she said she felt guilty for years, for laughing along when the jokes started, for not standing up at the moments that mattered. Hearing it made me sad in a way that wasn't only about the betrayal, it was about the small, slow erosion of people you once trusted. But the screenshots also did something else. They made the pattern visible, no longer a hunch in my ribs but a documented line of thought in other people's words. That changed the calculus for me. You can argue with someone's face if you want. You can't argue with texts that call your child a trial run. I called Megan, Lily's teacher, and asked her to keep an extra eye on Lily for the next couple of weeks. I didn't want the school to be another place where whispering could follow my daughter. Megan sent back a thumbs up and said she'd schedule a casual check-in with Lily and keep me informed. I texted Grace Parker and asked if she could be on standby in case things escalated, if Lily needed a place to play while I did difficult adult things. Grace answered immediately, "You're not doing this alone. Bring the receipts and the tea bags, I'll be your witness." Her blunt practicality steadied me. I sat Lily down that night with a bowl of popcorn and the glow of the television painting her face pale. I told her simply, "You did nothing wrong, you are our girl, you belong here." She tilted her head, studying my expression like she was taking a test. "Are they mad at me?" she asked, small and earnest. My chest ached. I put down the bowl, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and said, "Some grown-ups are making a mistake right now, that's on them. We will always choose you." Then I asked if she'd like to go to Grace's house for a sleepover later that weekend, and her face lit up. We made a tiny ritual then, 2 silly handshakes and a whispered promise that anyone who loved her had to show it. I wanted her to have proof, not just words. That night I changed the Wi-Fi password, the garage keypad code, and the door code on the smart lock. It felt petty and important all at once. Petty because it was just numbers, important because those numbers had been a backdoor to expectations and old habits. I collected the spare keys from the bowl by the door and put them in a small envelope labeled "Do Not Return." I texted Bate. "Bring my house key tomorrow, we need to talk." It was short, which was the point, no room for bargaining in a text. I also drafted a simple email to Mom and Dad, "Please come by my house tomorrow at 3 p.m. Bring any keys you have." I didn't invite argument. I reserved space to be heard and set the terms in advance. I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a blank notepad and wrote out the timeline of what I'd already done and what I planned to do next. I printed the screenshots, the bank statements, the unauthorized charges list, and the donation receipt from the hotel to the shelter. I put them all in a thin folder and tucked it near the front door. There's a wild clarity that happens when the messy flood of hurt is turned into paper you can hold. It stops being a rumor in the air and becomes a thing with edges. I rehearsed 2 sentences aloud until the words stopped feeling like rehearsed lines and started to feel like truth. "We choose Lily. If you exclude her, you lose access to my resources." I practiced steady breathing, practiced not chasing anger into a speech. Precision still felt like the right weapon. When the 3-hour timer I'd set earlier that morning buzzed, it signaled more than the end of a block of time. It meant I'd done what I said I would do and I was ready to show the results. I called Brenda, the ballroom coordinator, and asked for a confirmation email. Her voice sounded tired but professional. She read back the cancellation and the note about locking the ballroom doors to our group. I thanked her and asked her to place the printed sign I'd emailed right at the ballroom entrance. She obliged and later sent a quick photo of a blank easel waiting in the hallway. I hung up and felt strange, like I'd moved chess pieces on a board and couldn't see the endgame yet. I called Frank, the bandleader, one last time to confirm I'd transferred the cancellation fee and to thank him for understanding. He said he'd let his crew know. I called the boat company and accepted the penalty with the flat economy of someone who knows the cost of saying no. It was a financial hit, yes, but not catastrophic. It was a cost I chose deliberately so the message was not negotiable. I logged into the hotel's event portal and downloaded their contract cancellation confirmation, tucking it into my folder. Then I checked my bank app to make sure the transfers had indeed been paused. The pause notifications were there, the little green check marks like seals. I screenshot them all and emailed them to myself with a subject line that read, "Proof, actions taken." Next, I called Carla at the shelter to confirm the driver would pick up the trays and to ask her to text me when they arrived. She sent a short, grateful message, "We have everything. Bless you and your family." Her gratitude felt like a warm patch on my chest. I printed that message and added it to the folder. Finally, with all the logistics squared, I wrote short, blunt texts to Mom and Bate. "Come to my house tomorrow at 3 p.m. Bring my key." I didn't add a please because this was not a request. I closed the laptop and felt the weird, calm hollow of someone who has removed the first domino. By dinner time, the lobby smelled like boiled coffee and hotel carpet. Relatives drifted in, looking for the banquet. Confusion pooled on their faces when the staff pointed them toward the closed doors and the innocuous sign that read, "Tonight's dinner donated with love, Lily Morgan." I stood in the corner near the elevators, calm in a gray sweater and jeans, watching faces change as they read the sign. Mom's eyes flicked to me, then narrowed. She marched over, her voice sharp with accusation the way it was when she wanted to make me small in a room full of people. "What is this?" she demanded, hands on her hips, cake of entitlement perched invisibly on her shoulder. Bate materialized beside her, a perfect storm of lipstick and indignation. She pointed at me and said, loud and clinical enough for half the lobby to hear, "This is sabotage. You've humiliated us." I didn't meet their heat with heat. I let the silence work. I listened to the clink of forks and the murmur of other guests as reality sank in. The manager, Mr. Edwards, gave me a curt nod. He looked relieved I'd taken responsibility for the mess so he didn't have to explain a moral argument to his staff. Mom leaned closer, voice low with the practiced mix of guilt and demand. "Tessa, this is childish, you're making a scene," Bate added. "You could have handled this privately." I looked at the assembled faces, the cousins who'd flown in, the aunts who'd always smiled politely when my name came up, and then I said the thing that had been rehearsed until it lost its edge and found its truth. "If my daughter isn't family in your photos," I said, my voice steady, "you aren't eating on my dime." You could hear a pin drop. The words landed like a physical thing in the space. Mom's mouth opened and closed. Bate's face flushed the color of a warning light. Dad, who had been standing slightly behind them, tried to find his shoulders in the middle of the storm and failed. He looked thin and apologetic and older than he had any right to. People glanced around, phones came out. A murmur swelled and then splintered into 1,000 little conversations. No one shouted, no one needed to, the locked doors and the sign did the heavy lifting. I let the calm do its work, felt it move through me like a cool hand steadying a pulse. The moment was public, surgical, and absolute. I had told the story in a way that couldn't be cleaned up with platitudes. I held my ground until Mom sputtered something about tradition and Bate accused me of overreacting, and then I took a step back and let them speak into their own echo chamber. The message had been delivered, neat and unarguable, and for the first time in a long time, I watched a line be drawn in the hotel lobby and know, with the same certainty I had when I drafted a contract, which side I wanted to stand on. I wrote the statement the same way I do everything that matters, short, precise, and unemotional. I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed 4 clear facts, one after the other, like a list of receipts. Fact 1. At the group photo on Friday night, Mom told Lily to step out of the frame. Fact 2, I canceled the dinner reservation for tonight and donated the catering to a women's shelter. The sign at the ballroom reads, "Tonight's dinner donated with love, Lily Morgan." Fact 3, I paused the automatic transfers to Mom and Dad and stopped the monthly payment for Bates' kids' activities. Fact 4. Unauthorized charges labeled under a family card totaling $3,870 were made to my event accounts and must be repaid in full within 14 days. I didn't editorialize. I didn't add adjectives that might invite argument. I didn't call anyone names. I underlined one final line, our new rule: if you exclude my daughter, you exclude yourself from my resources. I wrote it in the plainest language I could because truth told plainly is harder to wiggle around than an accusation wrapped in emotion. I showed it to Evan and watched his face while he read. His shoulders tightened, then slowly eased the way someone finally lets a long-held breath out. "It's strong," he said. "It's clear. That was all I needed. Ready, not fired." I saved it unsent and archived it in a folder labeled if needed. The act of writing it felt like drawing a map. Having it saved felt like carrying a compass. That evening I messaged Mom and Bate separately, each message short and without room for debate. To Mom, the mortgage and HOA payments are paused. We'll reevaluate in 3 months. To Bate, the $390 for kids' activities is paused effective today. I didn't soften the edges with explanations. I didn't add emotes or love yous. I wanted the words to land without room for interpretation. Within minutes, my phone lit with replies. Mom's came first. "You know we depend on that, Tessa." Her tone, even through text, was a small accusation folded into a plea. I typed back, "I depended on you to see my daughter as yours." Bates' reply was faster, sharper. "You're punishing children," she wrote, the automatic weapon of the guilty deployed. I didn't answer in kind. I sent a line I'd practiced in my head a dozen times. "You punished mine first." She tried a different tack, nostalgia and small jabs. "Remember when we shared clothes?" "You're being dramatic." I sent a screenshot of the vendor charges I'd discovered and the dates. I circled the total and wrote, "This is the amount you used without asking. Pay back $3,870 in 14 days. Electronic transfer is fine." The messages continued, a ricochet of guilt, accusation, and bargaining. She offered partial payments, promises of "we'll get something by next month," and thin apologies that never named what they were apologizing for. I copied every exchange into the folder and printed a paper record. There's a peculiar relief in taking emotional blackmail and turning it into a ledger. It removes the drama and reduces it to facts you can hold. I also asked for my house key back in the same blunt way. I'd learned that giving people time and access while they were actively undermining you was a mistake. The key was both literal and symbolic. It was how arrangements and expectations had been maintained for years. Bate hesitated in her replies, typing and deleting, testing the waters to see if I'd crack. I didn't. Her final response that night was, "You're being extreme," followed by a string of angry emojis and then silence. I logged that too. Clarity beats memory, I told myself while folding the printed pages into my folder. We scheduled the doorstep talk for 3 p.m. the next day. I set the time with the intention of ending the meeting quickly and cleanly. 20 minutes, no yelling, no bargaining at the door. I texted Grace and asked if she could be on standby with games and snacks in case Lily needed to be somewhere safe while we did the adult work. Grace replied immediately. "On my porch at 2:50, pizza or cookies?" Her readiness steadied me more than she probably knew. I also emailed Megan, Lily's teacher, a brief note asking her to be alert for anything strange at school and to check in casually with Lily. Megan replied with a short thumbs up and "I'll watch for anything and offer a safe space." That network of simple, ordinary adults felt like scaffolding around us. Evan and I planned logistics down to small things. Lily would go to Grace's with a backpack of board games and a promise of popcorn. Evan practiced one line until he could say it without his voice cracking. "We choose our daughter." I wrote a 1-page agenda and printed it on a single sheet of paper. Keys returned, repayment plan for the $3,870, pause on transfers for 3 months, no talk about Lily as temporary, and contact rules moving forward, text only, no surprise visits. I placed the folder with the printed receipts, the bank screenshots, and the donation confirmation near the front door and left a black pen on top. I rehearsed 2 sentences out loud by the kitchen sink. "We choose Lily. If you exclude her, you lose access to me and my resources." Saying them until they didn't sound like lines made them sound inevitable. On the morning of the meeting, the house felt smaller and steadier, like a breath held and set down. I made coffee and left a plate of toast for Evan and Lily. I packed the folder under my arm like armor and told myself not to make the meeting a trial for their conscience. This wasn't about shaming them for behavior. It was about putting boundaries in place that matched the harm they'd caused. I double-checked that my phone was recording, quietly tucked in my pocket, not to trap anyone but to keep truth intact if the story warped later. At 2:50, Grace texted a picture of Lily doing a silly face with a bowl of popcorn, and I felt my heart loosen. At 3 p.m., the sidewalk creaked under a familiar shuffle of shoes. They arrived in the exact formation I expected. Mom first, clutching a bakery box where frosting had collapsed on one side, Dad behind her looking like he'd aged a year in a week. And Bate at the end, well-dressed and sharp, clutching her purse like a talisman. The storm door stayed closed between us. I opened the outer door and stepped back a foot, keeping the threshold as a line. I thanked them for coming and said plainly, "We have 20 minutes." I kept my voice calm because I'd learned that calm is a different kind of loud. Bate tried to talk at once, a rehearsed apology already forming on her lips. "We brought cake," she started, holding up the box like an offering. The frosting bulged over the side, the smell of sugar hit me like an unwanted memory of apologies that never stuck. I didn't invite them in. I didn't want the living room turned into a stage for negotiations. Evan stood to my left, hands folded, upright in a way he never had been at family events. I tapped the agenda with my finger so she couldn't dodge the point. The smell of the bakery was cloying, and I thought, not for the first time, that so many of their apologies smelled like powdered sugar, sweet and easy to make, quick to crumble. I asked for the keys first. Simple, direct. Bate hesitated, made a small face, then reached into her purse as if pulling out a confession. I held my hand out. The key dropped into my palm, heavy and small and ordinary. I didn't smile, I didn't offer thanks. I put the key in the little envelope labeled "Do Not Return" and set it on the porch table. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Grace checking in, a thumbs-up emoji. I felt steadier with the physical evidence in my hand. The meeting had begun on my terms, with a thing returned that had been taken for granted for years. Lily peeks around the side of the porch, hair in a messy braid from Grace's popcorn, eyes wide like a deer. My knees go soft for a second and I crouch down to her level. I keep my voice low and steady. "Grace is waiting with snacks. Want to go play?" I say, the words simple as if I'm offering juice at snack time. She studies me like she's checking a weather report. Then she nods, all business and bravery at once. Evan takes her hand and walks her across the lawn to Grace's porch. They wave, small and graceful, and Lily disappears into the bright fan of a neighbor's umbrella. Seeing them go is like setting something precious into a cradle. I feel the muscles in my shoulders loosen a hair. Mom says she didn't need to see this. The criticism, soft and trained, meant to close the moment like a lid. I answer, quiet and firm, she needed to see us choose her. The words land in the cool air and I can see the way they rearrange the room. I lean into the threshold so I'm literally between my child and the people who called her temporary. My posture isn't aggressive, it's a shield. I keep my voice soft because soft can be unbreakable. Anyone who excludes my daughter loses access to me and my resources, I say. There's no flourish, no moral sermon, just a clear rule, like a house rule taped to the fridge. Dad opens his mouth, probably to apologize or to beg off, but I raise one hand, the same tiny gesture I've used 100 times in meetings to close a debate. He stops mid-syllable, looking smaller than I remember. Bate's lips tighten. Her perfume smells too sweet in the porch air, like a promise that never lands. I slide the one-page summary of the $3,870 across the threshold. It's printed, circled, and annotated in my neat handwriting, date, vendor, amount, and a single line at the bottom, due in 14 days, electronic transfer preferred. I say, plain as the numbers, this is due in 14 days. Electronic transfer is fine, I will confirm receipt. Bates' face goes through several shades, outrage, then calculation. "You're really making me pay you back?" she asks, tone like someone discovering calculus is due on Friday. "Yes," I say, the word is small and final. I ask for my house key again, even though she'd already dropped one on the porch table. She digs in her purse as if this is theater, then drops a second key into my hand like a coin she'd rather not possess. I put it in the little envelope labeled "Do Not Return" and set it next to the folder. The envelope feels heavy with years of small assumptions. I tell Mom and Dad calmly, no more monthly payments for 3 months. After that, we'll reassess based on respect. I spell out contact rules, text only, no surprise visits, and stop talking about Lily as if she's temporary. I slide the donation confirmation into the folder and point to the shelter message on my phone, the one where Carla thanked me for the trays. "If you tell a different story about what happened, I will send the facts to the family," I say. I don't say it as a threat, I say it as promise of clarity. They react like someone who's been told the rules of a new game. Mom calls me ungrateful, Dad says I'm making life hard for them, Bate mutters that I'm heartless. I don't defend myself, I don't climb into the mud of argument, I repeat simple and clean. "We choose Lily," then, meeting over, Evan steps forward with the line he practiced. He says steady, "You will not talk about our daughter that way again." His voice doesn't shake. There's relief in the way his jaw unclenches when the words leave his mouth like the first breath after a dive. I close the storm door slowly, not slamming it because I don't need to make noise to make finality. Through the glass, I watch them stand on the sidewalk. Mom holds the sagging cake as if it could salve anything, frosting slips from its side and drips onto the box. Bate lingers a moment, head tilted like she's waiting for me to call her back. I don't. She turns and walks away, heels clicking, the sound like punctuation. Dad hesitates, looks smaller than the man I grew up with, then follows. The house seems to exhale with us as we lock the door. Evan runs the deadbolt and lets out a long breath that sounds like someone surfacing after being underwater. I feel the weight of the day sink down into the floorboards and settle there, a new history added to the house. By evening, my phone is alive with the version of the story they'll tell. A cousin's text blinks. "They're saying you abandoned the family." Their narrative is neat and old. The generous daughter went off the rails, cut off help, and left a trail of inconvenience. It's the story they can sell to outsiders who liked a simpler plot. I don't get mad. I open my notes app, copy the statement I drafted, 4 facts, clean and numbered, and paste it into the family thread with a subject line that reads like a docket. Facts about the reunion and our boundaries. I attach 3 items: the photo of the sign from the hotel, the donation confirmation from the shelter with Carla's blessing, and a screenshot of the paused transfers on my bank app. My messages are barebones, no flourish, no emotional color, just what happened and what I did in response. The group explodes with voices trying to fill the gap I left. Some messages are hurtful, "How could you?" and some are frantic, "Please, Tessa, call us." I don't take the bait. I answer once with the 4 facts, then I hit send on the prepared statement to a wider list. Cousins, aunts, uncles, even a few family friends who had been included for years in the orbit. The statement is short. It lists the photo exclusion, the donated dinner with Lily's name, the stopped transfers, and the $3,870 unauthorized charges. I end with the rule: if you exclude my child, you lose access to my resources. I sign my name and put the phone down. Kim replies first, a single line, "Thank you for saying it out loud," and a heart. Her message is a fissure of light. A few other cousins, the ones who know what it's like to be left in the margins, send private messages. "We're sorry, we didn't know, we're with you." My neighbor Grace texts, "Standing by the porch if you need anything." Megan Carter, Lily's teacher, writes back, "I'll keep an eye on Lily. She has more people who love her than you'll ever see in a thread." Those messages stick to me in a way the angry ones don't. There are also the silent ones. The cousins who used to come to every get-together and laugh at Mom's jokes go quiet. That silence says more than 1,000 defenses. It tells me where loyalty really lived under convenience. I feel a grief for what's lost, not because I miss their presence at barbecues, but because I had hoped the family I knew could be better. But there's also a vast, clean relief in the air, a sense of finally matching my boundaries to my life. That night, I make a pot of coffee and sit at the kitchen table with the folder open. I add the printed receipts, the screenshots, the copy of the statement I sent, and a small note in my handwriting. We choose Lily. I slip it into the front page like a bookmark. Lily comes home the next day from Grace's, popcorn in hand, and collapses on the couch with drawings of whales. She likes the new rhythm, no phone calls, no whispered arguments, just more song and more space for her coloring pages. She points at the folder when she sees it and says, "Is that for me?" I tell her, "Always." The folder is heavy, but not because of burden. It's heavy because it holds the truth now, not rumors. The story they tell about me will swirl and shift and maybe even hurt me in small ways, but the facts sit in the folder like stones in a pocket, real and impossible to smooth away. I carry them with me and sleep for the first time in a long time, like someone who has closed a door and turned the lock. Within a week, the practical consequences of my choices started to show up in ways I could no longer pretend were accidents. Mom texted me once, then again, then called, voice small around the edges. "How will we make the mortgage?" she asked, as if I'd become the villain in a story she already decided the ending to. I suggested budgeting and part-time work. It felt strange to answer like that, so practical, when the reality was that I'd written checks for them for years. Dad, who'd spent decades avoiding noise, took a job at a hardware store stocking shelves 2 evenings a week. He sent a photo of his new uniform and a hesitant smile. Mom picked up shifts at the grocery store near the mall. I didn't gloat. I didn't say, "I told you so." I felt a complicated relief, the kind you get when a leaky pipe finally forces the whole house to be fixed. Bates' response was louder and faster. She canceled Owen's travel soccer tournament and pulled Ruby out of the private lessons that had been her little display of achievement. She posted a strained, public "we're figuring things out" on her feed and privately blasted me for being punitive. She sent photos of the kids looking forlorn, hoping the image would tug my heart into old patterns. I answered each picture once with kindness and no money. "I'm rooting for you to make new plans." That line drove her crazy. She tried the slow guilt late-night messages about what the kids will miss and the sharp guilt short notes about how unfair I was being. I didn't reply to the guilt. I replied with offers of practical help that didn't cost me cash, lists of community programs, websites for low-cost lessons, even a referral for a coach who runs sliding scale sessions. It wasn't mean. It was boundary work. They tried the old hooks, photos with captions about family hardship, a cousin forwarding a tear-jerker story about grandparents struggling. It was all designed to make me a rescuer again. I chose different scripts. "I'm not sending money," I wrote when asked. "I'll help you find work and resources. I'll help you make a plan." The difference was small in words and huge in effect. Dependence loosened because it had to. The math taught them responsibility in a way my fixes never did. I felt guilt sometimes, especially the first week when Mom called and I could hear the tremor in her voice, but most of the time I felt steady. The house I'd bought with Evan and the child we'd chosen mattered more than keeping people comfortable when comfort came at the cost of dignity for my daughter. A month later, at the school open house, I almost didn't go. The thought of relatives in the room still made my stomach tighten, but Evan said, "We should be there." I met him at the door and we walked in with Lily, whose backpack had a crooked whale sticker and a trail of glitter on the straps. The gym smelled like pizza boxes and fingerprints on name tags. Parents clustered with their kids, calling out introductions and waving at teachers. A woman from my extended family, someone who'd been quiet up until now, started arranging a photo of the real grandkids and motioned as if Lily should stand aside. Her hand hovered like a gate. Something in Evan moved before I did. He closed the small space between them with gentle certainty and said, "Everyone in the frame belongs." He didn't shout, he didn't make an accusation. He simply shifted and made room, stepping back and signaling the photographer to wait. Lily slid into the middle, her grin so bright it looked like sunlight. The relative muttered and shrugged, forced to retreat. Megan Carter, Lily's teacher, came by, put her hand on Lily's shoulder, and said, "We include everyone here." The teacher's voice carried the authority of someone who sees children as whole people, not symbols. I felt something mend in me and in Evan at the same time, like we had both learned how to be on the right side of a simple thing. Afterward, Evan said quietly, "I didn't freeze." I squeezed his hand and said, "I saw." We went for ice cream to celebrate, a small ritual, but it felt major. For Lily, for us, the world had shifted a little toward safety. Those small public wins mattered, but the real work was the quiet rebuilding of a life that didn't depend on people who'd treated us like an option. Grace Parker dropped off a casserole one Wednesday, a foil pan warm with lasagna and a note that said, "Proud of you, call me if you need anything." Megan checked in about Lily's feelings and offered the school counselor for a short talk, just to give her space if she wants it. I joined a small adoptive parents meetup at the community center on Tuesday evenings. Sitting around a folding table with coffee and the soft hum of other people who'd waited and filled out forms and loved fiercely felt like going home. We started new rituals that fit our family instead of the old one. Friday became pizza night with neighbors, simple, loud, and full of bad jokes. We updated the photo wall with prints from people who showed up when it mattered. I slid the hotel's signed photo into our keepsake box beside Lily's first drawing of our family. We planted a pot of herbs on the porch, basil, rosemary, small, persistent things that needed daily care like a new habit. The house felt different. It felt like ours. Then Bate texted me, "Can we talk?" For the kids, the message was polite and quick, the kind of opener people use when they think a conversation will go the way they want. We met on the phone. She offered a soft apology for the misunderstanding. It was a neat, well-rehearsed phrase that never named what she'd done, the photo, the charges, calling Lily temporary. She asked me to restart the $390 for the kids' activities because they need normalcy. Her tone suggested I should patch things and everyone go back to the easy rhythms. I didn't explain or justify. I repeated the facts, my one-page summary and the repayment demand, full reimbursement of $3,870 within 14 days. She tried bargaining, partial payments, promises for next month. I said no. She tried nostalgia, remember when we shared clothes, as if our childhood closeness erased present choices. I answered with the simplest truth, remember when you used my card without asking? She tried to make it small, to let sentiment slide over the numbers, but I kept sentences short so I didn't get soft. She apologized for the misunderstanding again, as if apologies without ownership were enough. I told her calmly that partial payments weren't acceptable and that timelines matter. When she couldn't meet the terms, she stopped replying. The silence was a kind of answer. It told me where real accountability landed and where it didn't. After that call, there were ripples. Some relatives messaged to say they were sorry and asked if they could help in non-financial ways. Some didn't answer at all. Bates' non-apology showed me that what she wanted was a return to the old arrangement, my money, her lifestyle, and quiet agreement that I would keep things smooth. I didn't want to be the glue in that system any longer. Holding the line felt like a mean thing at times. I stood at the sink some nights and pictured sleepovers, borrowing old sweaters, and summers that smelled like bonfires. I felt the human urge to make things easy. Evan would appear then with a mug of tea and say, "Keep choosing her." That was enough most nights. When I did let the softness creep in one evening with the rain tapping the windows, I drafted a small compromise in my head and then deleted it. The cost of a check now would be the cost of another season of being invisible. I chose my child instead. I learned how to say no in shorter sentences and how to offer help that didn't feed the old dependence. I stopped fixing their budgets and started helping them find work and resources. I called job listings with Mom and searched for coaches who offered sliding scale lessons for Owen and Ruby. I still felt the ache of loss for the family I thought I had, but the ache was lighter than the steady weight of being taken for granted. Bate texted later, "Can we meet?" For the kids, I replied with the repayment number again and a single line, "In full in 14 days, or I send the fax to the family." She sent back a string of angry emojis and then silence. The apology remained a practice apology, soft words without ownership. I kept my own words simpler and steadier. I'll help you find alternate options, but I'm not restarting payments until things change. It was hard and practical and felt like a grown-up version of love. It taught them consequences instead of buying them lessons in entitlement. We started changing small things the week after the doorstep meeting, the sort of quiet work that feels boring until you realize how much it protects you. We changed the locks and rekeyed the back door one rainy Tuesday. I watched the locksmith work, the metallic click of the new deadbolt almost musical. It felt weirdly ceremonial, like we were closing an old chapter with a simple turn of metal. I removed shared streaming profiles and set new passwords on everything: television, music, the family photo cloud, so no one could casually scroll through our life. I switched phone numbers on a couple of accounts and asked the bank to send new cards to our address only. I blocked numbers that sent abuse and muted the threads that drained me. There's a particular calm that comes when you stop being instantly available to people who trained you to be a fix-it machine. I made a small list of practical changes and treated them like tasks at work, check them off, and move on. I created a family of choice contact group on my phone: Grace, Megan, Kim, 2 parents from the adoptive parents meetup. Those were the people I knew would show up the way we needed, not just when it was convenient for them. I scheduled quiet time in the calendar the same way I used to schedule transfers, an honest little box that said, "No calls 6-7 p.m. I made a small emergency fund labeled Lily Joy so I could buy her a surprise ice cream without sitting with panic about another unpaid bill. I replaced Mom and Dad's framed photo in the hallway with one of Lily on the swings, hair flying and mouth wide in laughter. The image made the hallway light feel different, like the house was agreeing with me. On practical days, I cataloged my new rules on a sticky note by the phone. No surprise visits, text only for non-emergencies, return keys, no talking about Lily like she's temporary. The note was both stern and silly, handwriting in a loop I've had since high school, but seeing it every time I reached for the receiver settled me. I started to make choices that protected the rhythms of our small family instead of defaulting to invisible labor for others. It was slow and sometimes lonely work. There were nights I questioned myself, felt the pang of childhood routines where I'd been expected to pick up whatever pieces other people broke. But every time I saw Lily asleep with her stuffed whale tucked under her arm, I knew we were doing the right thing. Evan's first test came at a park photo moment that felt like a small, private trial. A distant cousin had set up a group shot and, almost without thinking, began arranging the real grandkids together at the center of the picnic blanket. The hand that motioned toward Lily was practiced, polite, the same kind of move that had been learned in my family for generations. I felt my chest tighten, ready for the old reflex, my mouth opening to explain, to smooth, to let the moment pass. But Evan moved first. He stepped between them so gently I almost missed it. He put one palm up, the softest stop you can make with your body, and said, "She's their cousin. We're done having this conversation." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a speech. He simply shifted the physical space, and the idea that had been floating in the air, that Lily could be arranged out of the photo, fell like a curtain. The photographer delayed the shutter. Lily slid into the center, cheeks pink from running, and the camera captured her grin. A few relatives muttered under their breath but didn't push. Afterward, Evan came over, all nerves and relief at once, and whispered, "I didn't freeze." He looked like a man who just passed a test he didn't know he had. I hugged him so tight I could feel his heartbeat. I told him, and it felt like a moment we would both store. That small public moment did more for our family than any lecture I could have given. Evan began to practice standing up in soft, public ways, a gentle correction here, an early step forward there. He started asking Lily at breakfast, "How can I stand up for you today?" And she invented small, practical answers: "Hold my hand when it's loud," that he obeyed beautifully. Those interactions built a new muscle in him and in both of us. It taught Lily that her parents would be the ones to move first if someone tried to make her small. It taught me that courage can be quiet and consistent, not loud and sudden. A week after the doorstep meeting, I finally sent the statement I'd drafted the night I sat in the business center. I had rewritten it 3 times until it felt crisp and unavoidable. The message was short, factual, and signed with my name. It listed 4 things: the family-only photo exclusion, the cancellation and donation of the dinner with Lily's name on the sign, the paused transfers to mom and dad and the stoppage of Bates' children's activity payments, and the $3,870 in unauthorized charges that needed to be repaid within 14 days. I attached 3 things to the message: a photo of the hotel sign with Lily's name, the shelter's donation confirmation with Carla's grateful note, and a screenshot of the paused transfers. I didn't add commentary. I didn't include invitations to debate. The point was to make the facts visible. I sent it to the extended family group, cousins, aunts, uncles, and to a few family friends who had always been looped in. Then I sent the same to a smaller list of a few people I trusted to help hold me accountable if things escalated: Kim, Grace, and Megan. My thumb hovered over send for exactly 3 seconds, then I hit it. It was both small and huge. Small because it was a few lines of text, huge because it would not let them keep telling a different story to the people who matter. Kim replied almost immediately. "Thank you for saying it out loud," and a single heart emoji. A couple of other cousins wrote private messages. "We're sorry, we didn't know." Megan wrote, "I'll watch for anything at school." Grace sent a photo of a casserole with the caption, "On my porch if you need it." Those replies felt like scaffolding. Not everyone replied kindly. There were long lines of text accusing me of drama, of making problems where none existed. Mom posted in her public, polished way a vague line about children needing to honor parents, which read to me like a warning shot. I ignored it. The point of the statement was not to shame or escalate gossip, it was to set a public record. I archived the thread and printed a copy for my folder. Holding the facts in a simple document made future conversations cleaner. It also gave me a measure of peace. If anyone told a different story, I had the receipts. That clarity was itself a kind of armor. The 14th day arrived with the slow anxiety of a deadline. I checked the account 3 times that day, each time with a small, sharp hope that dissolved a little more. At 7 in the evening, my phone buzzed. It was bait. "We can send half today, half next month." I read it and felt the old reflex to take pity. I thought of the kids and their canceled lessons. I thought of afternoons of driving them. I thought of our family's small rituals. Then I thought of the pattern, her use of my saved login, the family virtual card, the casual assumption that my money was there forever. I typed back, plain and final, full amount, today. Or I will send my statement to the entire family. The words felt clean in my chest. She replied quickly, "You're cruel," and then went quiet. At 8, still nothing. At 9, still nothing. I set one final countdown in my head and made coffee to keep my hands busy. Midnight felt like a line drawn under everything. At 12:01 a.m., I took a photo of the glowing clock on the microwave and saved it with a label. Deadline passed. I did not sleep well that night, but I slept like someone who had kept her promise to herself. The consequences had begun, the math had started teaching, and the story was no longer only theirs to write. There were nights in the 2 weeks after the deadline when the old rhythm tugged at me. The house was quiet, Lily asleep, the clock ticking in that slow, honest way that measures real time, not the busy blur of a to-do list. I'd find myself standing at the sink, hands in warm, soapy water, thinking about the summers when my sister and I shared clothes and secrets and nothing felt difficult. I'd remember being the one who smoothed over fights at sleepovers, who made sure everyone had a game plan. Those memories were like soft songs, easy to hum and dangerous because they wanted me to move back into the old choreography. Evan would come up behind me with a mug and hand it to me as if the tea itself could be a small reason to keep steady. "Keep choosing her," he'd say, and it sounded simple because it had to be. Some nights I almost typed a message, half an excuse, half a peace offering, then deleted it. I pictured Lily's small, brave face on the ballroom steps and how she'd made herself smaller to fit into someone else's frame. I pictured the sign with her name feeding people who'd thought nothing of telling her she wasn't permanent. I thought about how many times I'd smoothed things over because it was easier than making everyone uncomfortable. That feeling comfort at everyone else's expense was a kind of cowardice dressed up like love. There were moments when softness felt like the cheapest power, give the money to make the noise stop. But I kept imagining Lily at 9 or 10 looking back at moments and asking, did you stand up for me? I wanted the answer to be immediate and true, so the softness didn't win. I slept like someone who had done the correct math, hard but honest sleep. The next morning light made things clearer, details looked cleaner, the urge to be liked dissolved into a steady preference for truth. At 9 a.m. on the morning I'd decided was the last morning of bargaining, I sent the statement I'd written and rewritten until the lines felt like bone. It was a short note, 4 facts, the pauses, and the demand for repayment. I attached the photo of the folded sign with Lily's name, the shelter's confirmation with Carla's text, and a screenshot showing the transfers paused. Then I hit send to the extended family thread and to a smaller list of people I trusted. Kim, Grace, and Megan. My thumb hovered over the button a long second. I felt like someone about to drop a stone into a still pond watching the ripples start. The replies came in waves. Some were small, private messages. Thank you, we had no idea. If you need anything, call me. Kim texted back a single sentence that felt like a gift. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. Grace sent a photo of her porch with a pot of soup and a line. On the porch if you need it. Megan wrote, I'll check in with Lily this week. Those were the messages that built a net. Still, the thread filled with old defenses. Mom posted a vague, polished remark about children showing respect. I ignored it. The point of the statement wasn't to win everyone's affection, it was to make the record plain. If they told a different story, I wanted the facts to be visible. After I hit send, I took Lily to the park. There's nothing dramatic about pushing a child on a swing, but that afternoon we laughed until our sides hurt. She called out, higher, Mommy, and I did. Watching her fly back and forth, hair bright in the sun, felt like currency I'd earned with my choices. When I checked my phone later, the family thread was a chaotic mess. Some cursed, some pleaded, and a few offered quiet support. I didn't answer most of it. I put the phone away. The point of that morning was clear. I had sent the facts out into the world and stepped back so the truth could settle where it would. Life after the showdown settled like new furniture in an old room. Weekends were intentionally simple. We built Saturdays around the things Lily loved: chalk at the driveway, whale books at the library, scavenger hunts that ended with hot chocolate at a small cafe. Our budget breathed in a way it hadn't in years. I watched my paycheck land and for the first month in memory remain in our accounts instead of being rerouted to someone else's emergency. We started a small joy jar on the counter, $2 here, $5 there, strictly for spontaneous treats. Snow cones in July, thrift store puzzles, a Saturday matinee. The jar felt like permission to choose small happiness without guilt. I tried a pottery class at the community center with Grace on a Wednesday night. My hands, which had spent a lifetime arranging other people's needs, learned to focus on clay that didn't argue back. There was a slow, satisfying rhythm to shaping something and then watching it survive a kiln. Evan took over grill duty on Sunday afternoons. Lily appointed herself chief supervisor with a plastic spatula and terrible apron. Neighbors started to show up for our Friday pizza nights, people who knew Lily's knock-knock joke and laughed at it anyway. Some family members drifted away. It hurt in small, practical ways: the missing calls, the old recipes not exchanged, but the people who stayed were steady. They showed up with casseroles and time and a readiness to hear the truth when it was needed. We planted herbs on the porch: basil, rosemary, a small mint that refused to be tamed. It became a small ritual: water in the morning, a pinch of leaves when we cooked, Lily sneaking a sprig when she thought no one watched. It felt like we were growing something slow and useful. I updated our photo wall with prints from people who were present and kind. The hotel sign photo went into the keepsake box next to Lily's first drawing of our family. The picture shelf at her eye level had more faces from our life of choice: Grace's boy with a chipped tooth, Megan with a stack of overdue library books, Kim with her camera always ready. The house felt like it belonged to us in a new way. We rewrote what family meant on a poster I hung in the kitchen. In big printed letters, I wrote simple rules: tell the truth, be kind, include everyone. Lily drew a smiling whale at the corner. We made a new holiday card that year: 3 faces and 1 line: everyone in the frame belongs. I sent copies to aunts and uncles who'd asked to meet Lily properly. For those who declined, I didn't beg. Tradition stopped being the old word that meant exclusion. We made it the word for repeating what heals. We found new rituals that felt like protection. The first day of school ritual became ours. Pancakes, a tiny note in Lily's backpack, a photo with everyone who actually came. No explanations, no permissions needed. We started hosting dinners with neighbors and friends who had seen us at our most honest. The adoptive parents' meetup on Tuesday nights was a small, fierce circle of people who understood the particular layers of love and fear adoption brings. Sitting in that room felt quietly revolutionary: people who'd chosen their kids and lived with that choice in 1,000 gentle, complicated ways. I hung a new print above the couch months later, a 36-inch canvas of Lily laughing at the park, hair caught in motion, a small group around her who had chosen her with their presence and tenderness. Under the image, in a tiny script, I had the line we'd lived by all along: everyone in the frame belongs. Evan kissed my temple the first night we sat below it and said, "We did the hard thing." I whispered back, "We did the right thing." The house felt lighter. My shoulders dropped, like a pack I'd been carrying since I was a teenager finally getting set down. The price had been real: some distance from people I grew up with, the awkward pauses at family events, but the gains were steady and true. A quieter life, a daughter who knows she is chosen, and a family built out of care, not obligation. I ordered the canvas on a small Tuesday, the kind of errand that felt ceremonial and oddly brave. The photo was one Evan had taken at the park the week after I sent the statement: Lily mid-laugh, hair a halo of motion, sunlight catching the stray bits of popcorn in her hair. There were neighbors and Megan and Kim in the background, hands and faces caught in the shapes of people who showed up, not because they were obliged, but because they wanted to. The image made me breathe differently when I saw it blown up on the screen. Edges softened, the joy enlarged. When the delivery man set the big cardboard tube at our door, I felt a small, ridiculous nervousness, like I did before important meetings years ago. We opened it together. The canvas was heavier than I expected, thick and warm from handling. Evan lifted it and we smiled at one another, a private, quiet kind of pride that had nothing to do with drama and everything to do with truth. We found the right spot over the couch, centered, not fussy, where the light hits it in the late afternoon and makes Lily's laugh glow. We hung it slowly, measuring twice, stepping back, adjusting. Lily watched the whole time, solemn, like it was a grown-up ritual and she was being allowed in. When it finally sat level on the wall, she walked up and tapped the corner with a small, satisfied finger. "That's us," she said, and I think I cried then, the sort of short, good cry that comes when something heavy finally lands in the right place. Under the photo, I had a little line printed in a simple script, the sentence we'd been living by for weeks. Everyone in the frame belongs. It felt small and huge at once. Evan kissed my temple like people do after finishing a hard climb, and he said, "We did the hard thing." I touched his hand and whispered, "We did the right thing." The couch, the canvas, the small herb pot on the porch, tiny domestic details, all of them singing the same truth. The opening image of locked doors and a sign is a memory now. The closing image is a home that is open, steady, and honest, with our daughter centered permanently. If you've been the reliable one who finally chose yourself or your child, share your story in the comments. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep listening. There are more first-person family revenge stories waiting for you here.